Hello Tigers, we had a good practice last Sunday. The topic was how to control the running game. Most players think that when runners steal, they're stealing on the catcher, but the truth is, it's often easier to steal on the pitcher. This video will recap what we learned so that our pitchers can control their bases and help their catchers out. The pitcher's job is to hold the runner close to the base in order to make it harder to steal. The most important thing to do is to pay attention to the runner. That means looking at him. Keep the runner guessing. Change your timing. When you commit to a pitch, get the ball to the catcher quickly. You will have to change your pitching motion with a runner on base and learn to use a slide step. Have a quality pickoff move. Don't just lazily throw to the base and step off and looking back. And of course, all of this is lost if your pitch hits the backstop. Now, regarding the slide step, let's let coach and former MLB pitcher Dan Blewett explain it.
So the way I teach this is I prefer that players come set with a slightly bent back leg, so not fully straight, so their weight's 50-50, but with a little bit of weight in here and their knee slightly inside their toe. So if they do this, now my weight's already sort of back, I could balance while remaining still pretty tall. So from here, all I have to do is sort of knock my knees together, or I could bring my ankles together. I can do either one, and this is just called a counter movement. So when we're pitching from the stretch, when we're trying to do a slide step, quote unquote, we are just trying to quickly get to the plate without, again, losing all of our power and our accuracy and our control of our body in general. So the way we do this is we load up our back leg first. So if you look at me, I'm still pretty much exactly as tall as I am with this slight amount of bend. I'm not hunching down, I'm not getting shorter. So I'm just taking a little bit of my weight into my back leg. The next big thing is that my feet are gonna be about shoulder width apart. If my feet are too close, the only place my leg can really go is straight up. That's all I can really do. I can't go back and front when my feet are only 6 inches or less apart. So that's a big thing that I correct right away when I work with younger pitchers, especially who like to set up like this from the stretch, because then the only thing they can do is lift their leg, and now it takes a long time and runners get a very big jump towards the plate. So the really important thing here is about shoulder width apart, and this can vary pitcher to pitcher. It's not a set in stone amount. This is about how far I set up. Slight bend in the back leg, and again from behind, it looks like this, just a little bit, and I'm still tall, and my knee's slightly inside. So now I'm set, and then when I want to go to the plate, all I have to do is start with a counter movement, and a counter movement just means I'm going the opposite direction of the way that I want to go, which is obviously towards home plate. So I'm here, counter movement, and then I go.
If you're using the slide step, you should be able to release the pitch within 0.8 seconds. Video from our recent tournament will show you your timing and how you changed it once runners were on base. Every once in a while you will see a runner who has a lead that is too big, or isn't paying attention, or he has a slow dive back to the base. These are opportunities to get a valuable out on the bases. The essentials for a good pickoff begin by being on the same page as your infielder. The infielder should know that a pickoff is coming, especially if the play is to second or third base, where a missed ball could lead to a run. Make eye contact with your infielder and use a signal to run a play. Use the element of surprise. Your pickoff should come at an unexpected point of your routine, or it should be a move that they haven't seen you do before. I've seen too many players make the exact same throw, many times in a row to the exact same runner. This slows the game and it kills the element of surprise. Execute your move crisply. If you make a throw just to change the routine, that's one thing. But if you want to get the runner out, your move has to be quick and your throw has to be fast. At practice we looked at two pickoff moves to second base, the inside and the spin move. Now let's let Dan Blewett explain the inside move.
So let's go over the mechanics of a good inside move. Number one, most players do this very poorly just because they're lazy and they don't work very hard at it and they don't practice it. What you don't want to do is just do this, because you didn't make anyone believe that you were actually going home. And it took so little time that they didn't have a chance to sort of get in the mousetrap. So if you ever set a mousetrap, you want to put the bait down the mousetrap so the mouse has a chance to go into the trap or to go onto the lever, whatever it is. You want to let them go all the way. If they trip it as soon as they put their first little fingernail or toenail on it, they're not going to get caught in the trap. Same thing here. If I do this, there's no time for them even to start taking off. But if I do this and make it look a lot like my regular delivery home, but instead when I get to the top, I go back, that's going to get a lot of runners off. So you think about it, right now they've figured out that I'm going home and they're starting to steal. Oh, I'm not going home, and now they're caught. So what I recommend in the mechanics of the inside move is that you go slightly slower than your normal delivery, the same leg kick height, and you keep your eyes locked on the plate as long as possible. If you do all those things, it's going to be really tough to figure out if I go home or if I'm going to second base. And even for you watching, you probably didn't know which one I was going to do. So right now, which one am I going to do? You don't know until right now. Now what you can't do as a balk, this will be a balk, is you can't go like that. Basically, once you get to the top, it's decision time, and there can't be a pause or any sort of jerking motion. Once you get to the top, it's go or go to second. So this whole time up, you're trying to convince them, but once I get to the top, it's a smooth motion to second base. So don't misunderstand me. You can't pause and then halfway go down. Once you get to the top, that's when you're going to go. But until that point, keep your shoulders to the plate, keep your eyes to the plate, and keep everything the same tempo or slightly slower, only slightly slower, so that they have a chance to go. So if your normal leg kick is like this, and you do this, you're not going to convince anybody. But if your normal leg kick is like this, and now you do that, it's about the same speed, but a hair slower, and you'll probably catch someone. The other thing to know, before I really explain the details of the inside move, so stick with me, is that if you always go from the slide step, it's going to be problematic when you have a runner on second base, because this is not going to look like your slide step. So when you have runners on second base, because they're definitely less of a stealing threat in general, and they're not going to steal third with 2 outs unless they're very dumb and they're very fast. So you're going to be okay having a full leg kick with runners on second base a lot more, just because how short that throw is and how fast they've got to be and how good a jump they've got to get. So I recommend when you get runners on second base to do a mixture of the two. And that's good practice in general, because if they go, okay, he did a full leg kick to the plate the first pitch, full leg kick on the second pitch, now they're going to go, and I do a slide step, they're probably screwed and they're probably going to be caught by a long shot because they got a bad jump. So mixing up your full leg kick and your slide step with a runner on second is a good practice, because now they've got some examples of you going home with a full leg kick. So that way when you do bust it out to do your inside move, it just won't look completely out of the blue.
Here's the spin move. This was new and awkward for most of you guys, but it's the primary pickoff move for a righty to first or second, so you should learn it.
So number one, the spin move footwork is essentially the same as the righty footwork to first base. Your rear foot, so for righties, your right foot, is going to disconnect forward at an angle, and this angle is important because it's going to allow your hips to actually get clear to second base. And then from here, I'm going to swing all the way around, and I'm going to make my throw in one fluid motion to second base. Right-handed pitchers picking to first, this is the same footwork, except now I go here, and then I go all the way around. So the footwork itself is actually pretty simple. What is important is, again, and I talked about this in my righty pickoffs to first base video, you can't come set like this. And I know this, I'm only talking to maybe some little leaguers who do this, because most pitchers stop doing this by time, I don't know, they're still pretty young. But if you come set with your feet too close together, even if it's like this, your feet don't have enough room to work to execute this pickoff move properly. You need a wider base of support, so really about shoulder width. And again, I'll link in the description to a video about the stretch position that explains all this in more detail. But you need your feet to be wide enough where they have room to work and exchange, because this foot, you can see it needs some room to exchange and do its thing, because now my hips have got to get going this way. So if your feet are too close together, number one, then this move just isn't going to work well for you. So at full speed, this move is going to be very, very simple. You're going to, again, step, and you're going to kick through. Now there is a little bit of like a, sort of like a, this one's going to kind of spin around. And again, I'll get some slow motion video that I'll overlay. But let me do a couple here to second base, and you can see how this looks at full speed. So I come set. We'll do one more.
Here are some tips on infield communication. The second video shows the open glove signal that we practiced. It's not the only signal, but it's a common one for younger players.
Play, you can't just do this. You can't just do the spin move anytime you want. It has to be coordinated with your shortstop or your second base, because no one's going to be there if you just bust out this move at random. They can't read your mind. So typically when you do a spin move and throw it, either you've coordinated something with your shortstop, your catcher slash your coach has put on a play which coordinates with your shortstop, or you already watched him crashing over. So there has to be coordination between you and typically your shortstop who's going to receive that throw, because he's got to be running over and he's got to be 6-7 feet from the bag by the time you start your move, so he's there ready to take your throw and put it down. So you can't just bust out a spin move throw, or it's going to go straight over the bag into center field, because they're just going to be like, what happened? I didn't know you were doing that.
Our shortstop's playing behind. We want him to creep towards that inside shoulder. He's in a spot where the pitcher can see him, so if he decided he wanted to try and pick the runner off, he would flash his glove and just keep going to second base. The pitcher would turn and throw. If he doesn't want to pick him off, he creeps and then quickly decides to go back to position. The pitcher sees that and delivers the ball, and we've got our regular range. When the ball reaches the hitting zone, our shortstop's back in his ready position, ready to play defense.
Finally, don't forget that a pitcher can always step off the rubber as long as he does it correctly.
So number one, I had a bunch of questions in that balk video, which again, I highly suggest you watch, about throwing to unoccupied bases or throwing when a runner is stealing. So it's a balk if you pick off to second base and there's no runner on second base. So if there's just a runner on first and there's no one on second, I can't do a pick off to second base because the base is unoccupied. However, there's also no good reason that I would ever do that. The only time you would maybe do that is if the runner was stealing. And people have said, well, if a runner's stealing second, why can't I just do a spin move to second? And the answer is that you can. It's legal. It's not a balk, because the base, when someone's running there, it's no longer counts as unoccupied. It's not occupied yet, but that rule is sort of off. However, what I've told everyone in the comments of that video is that if someone's stealing second base, doing a spin move is not the right thing to do. The thing to do is step off find that runner, run at him, or throw the ball to the infielder that wants it, probably the shortstop. So in that case, that's the first thing we'll cover. If a runner is stealing and you figure it out, or someone yells, step off, he's going, step off the rubber, and then you can set your hips, find the runner, run at him, or give the ball to the fielder that wants it. That's what you do when a runner is stealing a base well before the pitch, where the pitch is not going to be delivered, all right? So let's back up a second and talk about the mechanics of stepping off. You can step off the rubber anytime you want. So if you're getting a sign and you don't know like what it is, you can step off right then, which would be weird. You could come set, immediately step off. You can be set for 5 seconds and step off. Anytime you want, you have the power to step off the rubber. That's a given. So anytime, if you have a bug in your eye, your contact's getting cloudy, you know, you don't know what, you're not on the same page with your catcher, someone yells something, the runner's stealing, those are all the times that you would step off.
You should check out Dan Blewett's other videos. They're great, and he really gets down to business. I will put a link in the video description.